Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from all over the world, my name is Brandon, aka Rags to Riches, as always. No sound. You guys have no sound? You can hear me. You hear me or no sound? Got no audio. Interesting. All right, no audio, no sound. Okay. All right, hold on. Hold on. Let's find it here. All right, 1 second. You got sound? Who's got sound? You can now. You can hear me? What? That's freaking crazy. All right, all right, all right, all right. That's weird. That is weird. You got me. Okay, is there a delay? Or are we good? Okay. You were just dancing around very quietly. Okay. Yeah, so here's what's happening. I'm on Wi-Fi. If you guys, I need to get a hard line up here. I've got a new office, a new spot. So if it gets weird, sorry about that. It's probably going to be some laggy stuff. So guys, thank you for showing up here. I want to make sure that I don't waste your time too much. But here's why we're here. I promised you guys basically a strategy stream. Now, last time I recorded the video and chopped it up and made it real nice. Okay. This time I want to do it different because you guys are going to have a lot of questions. I've already had a lot of questions. The first stream was an absolute smashing success. Top to bottom. Awesome. All right. So we're going to get right into it and we're going to just start talking about this. Guys, here's what I got to say. Here's my message to everybody right now. Take a deep breath. Be calm. If Pulsechain launches soon, awesome. If it doesn't launch soon, it's okay. All you are here to do is make sure that you don't click buttons if you don't know what you're clicking. Don't nuke yourself. Just stay calm, cool, calm, relaxed, collected, asking questions, making the right moves. That's what's important. All right, guys. So let's get into this here. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Now I made myself really small in this corner here. So if for some of you who might be reading along, we'll kind of go that route. All right, here, let's get into it, guys. Brainstorming strategy and game theory. A lot of this is just going to be me thinking out loud. I've got some data points that I get to share with you guys. There's probably going to be there might be a slide or two that's incomplete, but I just wanted to just talk out loud and consolidate everything that I've been talking about, everything that I've talked about with other folks, good ideas I've gotten from other folks, and we're just going to condense it all down together. All right, and we're just going to chill. That's all we're going to do. We're going to chill, folks. That's it. Brainstorming strategy, game theory. There is so much to speculate about with regards to Pulsechain launch. There's not much content peering behind the veil of Pulsechain launch. There's really not, okay? There's a lot of people that get into live streams and they talk, and there's really, really dense, data-dense content, quality-dense content for short periods of time, but you got to sift through it. So we're going to bring it all together here. So what type of questions do you people have? He said, you people. Questions surface such as, what happens to the price of Hex before, during, and after launch? Will there be early end stakes on the Ethereum side? Will there be early end stakes on the Pulsechain side? How will non-RH assets perform? How will Pulsechain perform? How will PulseX perform? What tools potentially exist to ensure parity between prices on both chains? What price does PLS start? What price does PLSX start? Under sack rate, above sack rate? Why are people selling Hex? Is Pulsechain cheaper or more expensive pre-bridge? Post-bridge? What are sharks going to do with their cash? What are whales going to do with their cash? What's happening to the liquidity pools? Does PHEX dump because everyone uses their copy to get into Pulsechain and PulseX? Are stablecoins a better play than Hex copies? What's worth more at the beginning, a stable or a Hex copy? Are we losing principal if we swap? Does PLSX have a higher ceiling, and does PLS have a higher ceiling? I hope that I got a lot of your questions that I've seen out there. These are questions that I observed. These are questions that you guys send to me. So these are some of the things that we're going to be answering both directly and indirectly. Also, let me change this to live chat instead of chop chat. Okay, we're good there. Okay, cool. Here we go. So the first question, this is the question everybody wants to know. At what price does Pulsechain launch? Okay. The first thing that I got to say to everybody here is, these are my thoughts alone. You've probably heard me come up with different Pulsechain price predictions. And I don't care to be right or wrong. All I'm doing is brainstorming out loud. With the new information that I have that I didn't have 2 years ago, this is the updated info. So we'll go from there. I'll try to do my best to show my work and provide actual data to help this along. All right. First, let's take a look at layer ones. Let's take a look at layer ones that have launched. All right, here's what I did with this. I wanted to make sure that I threw out Ethereum. I threw out XRP. I threw out a lot of the older ones. Why? It's because even though crypto's only been around for, 13, 14 years now in the form that we know it, even though it's only been around that long, guys, things move very, very quickly. Okay, very quickly. So to compare Pulsechain to Ethereum, in my mind, is not a fair comparison whatsoever. Different infrastructure, different liquidity, lots more friction in terms of monetary energy back then than what we have now. So let's take a look. And guys, this was actually more difficult than I thought. What you're going to find with a lot of these layer ones that got funded ICO phase, they did different deals at different prices with different VCs. So one guy might have got it at 20 cents, other guy got it at 5 cents, other guy got it at 70 cents. So what I did, I went through and I tried to find each of the price points and average them out. So that's what this kind of looks like. So we're going to go with Luna first. All right. Regardless of what you think about Luna, this is the raw facts and data. And this is actually a departure also from a lot of the data that's circulating out there. I've really went deep to try to fact check and dive in to make sure this is correct. And it's really hard to do, but we got it done. Luna. So the ICO on average was about 20 cents. Okay. 20 cents. So at launch, Luna came in at around 7 cents, and then it pushed up to 25 to 40 cents. Okay. So when I say 25 to 40 cents, I mean on any given day within the first 2 weeks. Sometimes it was as close to like the same day. Sometimes it was like 5 to 10 days out. On average, this is about 10 to 14 days. So when I give you that range, 25 to 40 cents, that means at some point within that 2 week period, that's the highest price that it hit before it corrected back down. And I'm also going to tell you how much it corrected back down. So for example, Luna at its highest here. So what do we got? So this was about a 6x. All right. So Luna at the highest saw about a 6x pump from the launch price. All right. Very, very important to know. Now keep this in mind too. Look at the average ICO price, 20 cents. Okay. So it basically did a 1x from ICO price at the height. But from launch price, it was pretty nice for some people who maybe didn't get into the ICO. They were able to snatch up some cheap Luna. Polkadot average ICO price was 29 cents. Okay, at launch, it ranged anywhere at 70 cents was the launch price. It pumped all the way to $1.40. Okay, so you're looking at about a 4x pump. So we're using the data that we have to talk about this. Next, Avalanche. Avalanche started at about 50 cents ICO. Okay, and that's the average from all the different deals that they did with the VCs. Launch price about $3.30, and then $6.50 at the height. At the height, it was about a 13x pump. So you guys understand now, like, why I'm throwing out pretty much any type of blockchain that launched more than probably about 3 years ago. I threw that out. We want the closest data that represents the environment that we have in terms of friction or not friction monetarily. Phantom, 4 cents. Okay, within that 2-week period, 10 days, it went up to about 10 cents. It's about 2.5x pump. Now, you guys know Phantom took off, but we're not talking about Phantom taking off. We're talking about that time frame, about 2 weeks. Okay, from launch price to 2 weeks after that. Solana, 22 cents average. Launch started at 80 cents and it pumped to $2.20. All right, Harmony started at 0.003. Okay, launch. It started at, ICO was 0.003, launch a penny, and then it pumped to about 4 cents. So that represented a 13x from ICO price. Arbitrum, all right? So Arbitrum, 20 cents ICO price on average amongst all the deals that they did at the height within that 10 to 14 day period, about $1.80 at its height. That represents about a 10x. So you got to understand that the name of the game with these folks is they want to get their money and they want to get a lot of it back out. They could do that really quick because they know there's a massive amount of demand. And we're going to go over the intricacies of what separates somebody with a $10 million ICO position compared to somebody with a $10,000 ICO position. And we're going to go over the psychology behind that too. It's important to point out here. All right. Let's go to slideshow. Sorry, guys. So here's what we know. And this is actually, this is pretty important that, and I didn't point out. I would say just about all of these saw a retracement of at least 90%. You guys hear that? Just about all of these saw a retracement of 90%. And here's another thing. You don't have to taste the entire, you don't have to eat the entire pie to get an idea of what it tastes like. So if I'm going to assume that if I went to look at other layer ones that have launched, this is going to be very similar. Okay, this is going to be similar amongst quite a few. So we saw these pumps. On average, we're probably looking at about like a 7x pump, followed by a 90% retracement. That's what we saw in each one. It's going to give you an idea of the market psychology. All right, so let's get into this. How do we take advantage of whales that are actually dumping? How do we do that? We got to understand why they're dumping. You got to take advantage of whales dumping by having dry powder ready and taking advantage of oversold opportunities. I'm going to repeat that a little bit clearer and slower here for you. Take advantages of whales dumping by having dry powder ready and taking advantage of oversold opportunities. Okay. If you think that any of these assets will do a 10 to 100x, then look for the asset that has been sold off the most at the beginning or dips the hardest at some point within 90 days. Now, I'm going to give credit where credit's due here. I watched a stream. I think it was with Cryptographics and a couple other guys, and I started forming an opinion about this a while back. Not a while back. I think it was about a week ago, and it just made a lot of sense to me. And one of the things that made sense was like, hey, listen, if you don't bet on this thing doing a 10,000x, folks. You don't bet on it doing a 10,000x. It was Walrus and Cryptographics. You bet on this thing doing like a 10x. You bet on this thing doing like maybe 100x at the most. So if you're betting on two assets that you think will both do a 10x, okay, then what are you going to do? You're going to buy the asset that is the cheapest if you think they will both do a 10x. That makes a lot of sense. You don't live in angels in the outfield out there talking about 10,000, 20, 50,000x. That's not really logical. So when these things dump, you're going to pick up the asset. I think we can all fairly assume, barring any type of catastrophic failure, that Pulsechain and Pulsex are going to do a 10x and even, obviously Hex. So if you think about it that way, then things change. Look for the asset that has been sold off the most at the beginning or dips the hardest at some point within the first 90 days. Okay? So this is important here. 90, actually, I'm going to take that back. 60 to 120 days. That can be the sell-off period. This can be the sell-off period. When you look at the charts, all right, and guys, guess what? I am the founder of a token. I went through a whole launch phase. I was on the blockchain. I was looking at every single transaction. I'm looking at the chart. I'm understanding why things are dumping and why things aren't dumping. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that happens here. So the first 60 to 120 days, more often than not, there is a sell-off after an initial pump. We've already established, based on other blockchains, and I'm going to give you my opinion about what's going to happen with Pulsechain. We've already established that these things can pump 7x, 10x, some went to 13 to 15x. Okay, probably about an average of a 7 to 10. So if we've already established that, all right, then we know that it's going to pump for about maybe up to 10 days, and then it's going to sell off all the way up to 120 days. 60 to 120, a lot of times it's right at 90. So we'll just use 90. So personally, I am going to have a dry powder bag ready. And this will most likely be a stable that I will bridge in using pulseramp.com. Okay? Now, in order for me to, I'm going to explain to you what Pulseramp is because I know that there's a lot of new folks in here. I don't want to muddy the waters in terms of your understanding. So just think about it this way, okay? If you have US dollars and you go to Sicily and you want euros, you're going to go to a place that swaps it. When I was in the Navy, we actually had liquidity on our ship. So we had euros that we could go to the store, or we could go to the yeoman, which is the administrator on the boat, and we could swap our US dollars for euros based on the exchange rate. Okay? Now, in this case, you're going to be taking your assets on Ethereum and you're going to go to a place and you're going to swap them, and they're going to be able, those assets that you receive in return are going to be able to be used on Pulsechain. So that's all I say. That's all I'm going to say about that. It's quite literally that simple. All right. So I'm going to have a dry powder bag ready. It will most likely be stables that I will bridge in using pulseramp.com. And I just explained to you what that was. On day one, right away, I personally, not financial advice, financial opinion, this is myself, I personally will have a dry powder bag ready. I will take half of my stack and I'm going to buy PLSX and PLS. All right. This is where you can go do your own thing. I'm just telling you what I'm going to do. Some people would want to substitute Hex in here, and that's fine. And actually, there's a strong case to be made about this based on some data that I've gathered, and we'll talk about that in a second. So I'm going to take half of my stack. I'm going to buy PLSX and PLS day one, almost instantly. I will then take the other half of my stack and begin to dollar cost average for the next 6 months. Okay. Why does this make any logical sense? Why would I do this? Why am I going to go and burn half of my stack day one, hour one? Okay, as soon as the bridge opens. Why would I do that? Imagine both assets absolutely taking off from the start. I want to have a position to catch the price appreciation in that scenario. So you have to plan for two scenarios here, right? So I want to be able to catch that price appreciation. So I want to be able to get in. If we're assuming that this thing is going to pump. If we're assuming that it's going to pump, all right? I want to stay calm, cool, and collected, so I'm going to give you both scenarios. So I want to get in just in case it does pump. Now, what if it doesn't pump? That's okay. That is okay. Why? That's why you don't go all in. Because the price could fall. If price falls, you have 50% of your stack to average down as price falls. If you haven't been through a bear market, if you haven't been through this bear market, and you bought the top and you average down, and then suddenly you buy the low and then it pumps, you've made all your money back and more. DCA is very, very strong. And I think that in the environment that we have right now with RH assets, I think this is a smart play. 50%, buy the asset of your choice day one. After that, DCA down. Now, this is important too. I got to make this point. You need to make your DCA frequency. Rather, you don't need to do anything. I need to make my DCA frequency high at the beginning. Why would I want to make it high at the beginning? It's because you're going to have massive amounts of volatility. Okay? So if you're trying to catch the downsides and volatility is high, that means you have large swings in price in small amounts of time, then I'm going to want to increase that frequency to try to catch some of these lows. So maybe I do it every day for a week, or maybe every other day for a week or two. After volatility kind of chills out a little bit, you can then spread out your DCA timeframes. So instead of doing it every day, maybe you do it every week, or maybe you do it every other week, something like that. All right? Until volatility slows. Now, I'm going to talk about why people dump. Why do people dump? What I learned from Texan and other projects that I studied on chain during this process, it seems like the biggest danger to initial Pulsechain price are going to be, guess who? The top 1% of holders. A lot of people think that these new folks are the folks that aren't diamond handed. And guys, based on the data that I've seen, actually that couldn't be further from the truth. It's the big boys. So let's explain why. All right? And I'm not holding anything against people who have large positions. I just want to explain to people why it would be that it would dump. Think about this. Their sacrifice money represents significantly more value than the average. If you have somebody that's in the top 0.1% or top 1% of holders, and they would prefer not to have more risk than necessary by holding on to that position. Some people, some whales don't give a damn. Okay, they're in it for the long run. I'm just talking about the people who I think have the ability to murder price. It's a very small amount of people. So I'm just going to tell you why. The difference between $1 million and $2,000 is 500x. If a person has the opportunity to pay their bills for the next 10 to 15 years simply by selling at a 2x, then they're going to do that. Also, they're going to preserve their capital. They're going to get that back too. It's a massive win. And there's a lot of people out there that play the sacrifice game. I've seen it on chain. I've seen it with multiple projects. I've seen it with projects that have launched. Okay? There's a lot of OG hexagons out there. They'll go and they'll sacrifice quite a bit, and then they'll extract max value day one, day two, week one. And they get out and bounce it and roll it into hex or whatever they like. Just letting you know, if a person has the opportunity to pay their bills for the next 10 to 15 years by selling it at 2x, they will. I don't like it. You don't like it, but that's just the reality of the situation. It doesn't really hurt my feelings, folks, because if you put yourself in their shoes, you might think the same way. Humans are going to do human things. And another thing here, whale status doesn't make anybody special. They're going to operate under the same emotional guidelines as anybody else would. So don't get mad at these people. Whales know that they can cascade the price down. They can sell off half their position and freak the market out. Even if they cascade price down 20% past their cost basis and rebuy, they significantly increase their holdings of PLS. Not to mention that there are back rooms of multiple whales and single whales of multiple wallets who work together and accomplish this task. And I'll also say there's the opposite. There's very, very benevolent back rooms of people that are doing this as well. I'm just telling you that this is how it is. I've seen it on chain. Seen it. So why am I even pointing this out? Remember, we want to learn what? How do we take advantage if there is a dump? I've already told you how to do it. I'm just justifying with logic how I came up to this conclusion. All right. If whales do dump price, if there's mass extraction initially, just know that you're okay because you can DCA down and you can get those nice juicy low prices. Okay. Let's talk about what we know in terms of PLS. Well, if there's a new RH tweet, then let me know, guys. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing here. I tried to time the market. I'm trying to time PLS launch right now. What do we know about PLS? Total PLS supply of about 145 trillion. For much of the broader crypto community, this supply is going to have negative connotation in their minds. Okay, because people don't know crypto the way that we know crypto. They think that the starting price should be absolutely buried with tons of zeros because the supply is high. But what do they not realize? People fail to realize that there is already a price that has been set for Pulsechain. It's the price that people were willing to sacrifice for with no expectations. $1 to $10,000 worth of PLS. In fact, not 10,000, 10,000 PLS. In fact, people are sacrificing every day for Pulsechain still. You can go to the Pulsechain sacrifice wallet, you can see it. That definitely shows me demand, folks. That shows me demand for Pulsechain. The fact that people are still trying to get in, even though they're getting wrecked price-wise. Now, what's interesting is the ranking multiplier, because it will divvy out non-paid for PLS. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that, folks? What I mean by that is this. If you sacrifice 1 to 10,000, that's cool. You're going to get your tokens for that 1 to 10,000. But guess what? There's going to be additional supply given on top of that based on your ranking. So if we are trying to figure out, all right. You guys keep blowing me up about this. I'm getting text messages. What did RH say? What did this guy say? Hold on, guys. I'll edit this out and repost this video. Nothing. Okay. Nothing crazy. All right. So here's what we got to say. Is Richard going to factor in the price of those tokens that people are getting because they ranked higher? Is that going to have an effect on where this price starts? All right. The other thing that we have to understand here is whether or not Richard is going to want to make the people happy who sacrificed the most. All right. That's another thing that we got to look at here. Is he going to make those people happy? Or is he just looking at an average across all the people who sacrificed to see whether or not he wants to make them positive, or whoever controls that whole process, he wants to make those people positive on day one? That's the question here. If he doesn't factor in the freebie coins to the sack rate and only looks at principal preservation for sacrificers, I think it's fair to say that we could see a starting price of 0.001. Okay? Which represents a 10x from sack price, which is 3 zeros and a 1. Maybe that happens. Now, why would it happen that way? In my mind, it would give us room to pump, and then it would give us room to fall back potentially 90%. There's a lot of people out there, they're going to say, listen, there's no way this thing is going to correct back down 90%. Guys, I'm here to tell you that I would much rather give you the bearish case. All right, I want to give you guys the bearish case because I don't want your head to be in the damn clouds. So I think that we could launch the price 10x above. I think we could go another 10x above that. Maybe we do a 20x the first 2 weeks, and then we can correct back down. And this would give us room to correct back down. Now, here's what I noticed with Texan. The donation price for Texan, we had an initial like 6 or 7x pump. It fell down to donation price. We had 2 or 3 really, really big whales sell off supply. But what happened was very interesting. We had people hold that donation price like crazy. Held it tight. They defended that level like crazy. People do not want their principal to be underwater. That's important. And I'm just going to take that, I'm going to transmute it to Pulsechain and just assume with all the people that we have involved here, if things sell off that much and we start playing and toying with that 0.0001 SAC price, I think it's going to be defended. I think it's going to be defended very well. There's another thing to point out here too, guys. The liquidity is going to be potentially high. I don't know what this is really going to look like liquidity-wise. All right, we don't know. There's no way to tell. We do know that Richard realizes that thin liquidity makes things run. I think that there's a reason why we have a fork of pretty much Uniswap, a V2 fork, and that's because I think if you're a bigger player, it's easier to. I think it's easier to manipulate price in whatever way that you want to go. So whoever the big players in terms of liquidity are going to have a lot to say about what price does initially. And I'm just going to say that there are a lot of stables out there. There is a lot of value out there that can be pushed into liquidity. So it'll be interesting to see if it's thin or thick initially. Yep, Sandy B says it will definitely correct, but not below SAC rates. Again, I don't think it will, but I'm giving you the bearish case. You may have already said that, but what token are you planning to bridge over to use PLS and PLSX? I'm planning on bridging over stables. Okay. Very interesting stuff here, guys. I know you can't really see that this well. Oh, shoot, sorry. I did a poll. It got 2,000 votes, so it's not like it was a small cross-section. It says you have 100,000 extra hex that was duplicated at the fork. Are you most likely to A, keep it, B, swap for PLS, C, swap for PLSX, or D, swap for other? What do you guys think how do you think this turned out? Well, 60% of people said that they were going to keep it. I found that very interesting. Because I assumed that people would want something that started at the bottom. Now, I don't know if there is some type of bias for this. I don't know if people have just been programmed and conditioned and engineered to say that. One thing I will say is this is an anonymous poll. So there's no way to virtue signal unless you comment in the comments below to say, look how awesome I am. I said I'd keep it. Okay. We'll throw all that out there. That was interesting to me. So 60% said they would keep their hex. 24% said they swapped for PLS, and 13% said for PLSX. And I put other in there because there's a lot of non-RH assets. Interesting stuff here. All right, let's keep going. So then I did another poll. I said, let me drill down even further. Now this had 2,023 votes. Additionally, I drilled down even more and asked people what they were going to use a majority of their dry powder for. Here's what's interesting. Guys, check this out. With the majority of your dry powder after Pulsechain launch, are you more likely to A, buy Hex, B, buy PLSX, C, buy PLS or other? So 42.9%, and this was 1,600 votes. I think it ended up being 3,000, but it had kind of stabilized from here. Guys, 42% said they were going to buy PLS. Check this out. It was almost a dead statistical tie between Hex and PLSX. That blew my mind. So not only had we established here that 60% were going to keep their Hex, there's more demand, or as much demand for Hex as there is PLSX when it launches. Now, people are going to say, oh, that shouldn't surprise you, Brandon. You're just, you don't know the Richard Hart community. You don't know the Hex community. Guys, I would say there are some people that are qualified to say, yeah, I do understand. This is my full-time job. It surprised me. I thought for sure people would want to dump dry powder into PLS or PLSX. So very, very interesting here. All right. So let's keep going. I wanted to make those 2 points here. So what are my thoughts? So what I did next, I said, well, this is awesome. I've got a large audience. Why don't I just ask these people what's going through their heads? Why don't I just ask? Okay. I said, all right, now it makes sense that the respondents would value PLS over Hex and PLSX. This is because many people do not have allocations of PLS because they miss the sacrifice phase. So there is demand for PLS, which backs up my original statement and thought process that PLS could see a 10 to 20 to 30x pump. It really could. I really believe that. Okay. Now, it makes sense that respondents would value PLS over HEX and PLSX for that reason, because not everybody had the opportunity to get in to PLS. Lots of people got into PLSX. The question becomes, why is there such an emphasis on HEX? Don't fret. I asked that question, and I think I found the answer. You know what the answer is? Boom, boom, boom. Guys, people value T-shares. In a huge way. People value T-shares. T-shares are the force multiplier in this situation. And I'm going to show you how I came to that conclusion, all right? I screenshotted some replies to that question that I asked. So Como LT says, acquire T-shares by any means possible. Anything else is a distraction, and Pulsechain was built for HEX. And I was challenging each one of these comments. And I was asking for clarification because I really wanted to get in people's heads and figure it out. AR Crypto J says, exactly, have a good sized bag of PLSX, but I need more HEX. If I can get it before the big boys and girls come in with mad powder, I will. Hashtag need more HEX, need more PLS. I'm needy. DinoX 5555. HEX has always been an OG. High chance of a lot of profit will come from PLS and PLSX to HEX on both chains. T-shares. Interesting. So people are saying they're gonna move their PLS and their PLSX energy into HEX. Very interesting stuff here, folks. And I want to paint this picture for you. I want you guys to see what people are actually thinking real time. Now, again, there's also the bias of virtue signaling. And virtue signaling is huge on Twitter, showing everybody that you're towing the line publicly and just acting one way publicly than you would another. So I don't know if that plays into it, but I don't think so because of these two polls that I ran. 60% of people said that they were going to keep extra PHEX when Pulsechain launches. And then a statistical tie in terms of the demand for HEX and PLSX, which is very surprising. Okay. Matrix Glitch 369 says there's no better yield on the market that is also trustless. Interesting. Very cool. Okay. Texan OG Day One. Robert says, also the HEX Investment Trust will pump the price like we have never seen before once it's up and running. So better to get cheap HEX now while the opportunity is on the table. And the launch of Pulsechain is a perfect time to load up. Interesting. Jenkins. Too many people have PLSX, so they won't buy, relying on the buy and burn, okay? So they're going to rely on that buy and burn. Not enough people have Pulse. With the data that we've provided, we have established that at this point. Many feel PHEX will be severely undervalued. Jenkins says, I'm personally not buying Pulse right out of the gate, but I think most people will. I sacked heavy for both. So I like the PHEX route probably. Very interesting here. Okay. Now let's take back, let's go back. Let's rewind time a little bit. And let's talk about that stream that I saw with Graphics and Walrus. And Walrus just made a great point that resonated with me. Throw out the 10,000X, throw out the 1,000X. Are HEX, Pulsechain, and PulseX going to do a 10X the next bull market? Are they? I would argue yes. I would argue all three are going to do that. Are they going to do 100X? Maybe. I don't know. But I would certainly argue a 10X. So if those three assets are going to do a 10X, and at Pulsechain launch, HEX is massively undervalued, where are you going to put your money? Where might you put your money? In that case, if I frame it that way, you're going to say, well, I might put it in HEX to get my 10X. I might put it in, maybe Pulsechain to get my 10x. I might put it in PLSX to get my 10x. The whole point of this exercise here is to show you that hex probably should not be put out of the conversation, guys. A lot of people aren't talking about hex at all. And through this information, we found that it could actually be important. The Pulsechain narrative of Pulsechain being created for hex seems to be running extremely strong. I thought I had my ear to the ground when it came to sentiment in the community about this, but I did not expect these numbers. T-shares are extremely valuable in the eyes of many in this ecosystem. Richard Hart has said countless times that Pulsechain is created for hex. So based on the data that we have collected and the data that I have shown you here, the demand list is as follows. People want Pulsechain. I think people want hex over PulseX. So Pulsechain, hex, PulseX in order of demand. What do you guys think? You think that's a fair assumption? You think that's a fair assessment here? Increase my ginger ability here on screen real quick. All right, good. All right, let's keep going. With that said, 50, 25, 25. If you guys have been around, you've watched my streams quite a bit. This is the rule that I lived by before Hex. I had a Telegram channel before Hex, guys. And I was talking to people about how to build portfolios with Bitcoin and Ethereum and all sorts of stuff. Cardano and the Dogecoin stuff and this and that. I'm now able to take this concept because it worked very, very well to decrease risk. And I can take that now and apply it to this ecosystem. And I think it's going to be so much stronger. Cryptographic says, thing is, it takes half the number of X's when combining both EHEX and PX gains to compete with PLSX and PLS gains. Well, yes, absolutely. Good point. Good point. I've stated countless times that prior to my Hex strategy prior to Hex, prior to me getting in this ecosystem in 2021, my strategy included putting 50% of my portfolio into projects that preserve my capital more so than others with less volatility. Why? Because it is all about capital preservation. It's all about capital preservation. This used to be Bitcoin for me, okay? Because it was much harder to move to the upside or downside. It didn't fall as hard as alts. Alts will fall 90%. Bitcoin just didn't do this. And so 50% was Bitcoin for me. This was followed by Ethereum at 25%, and then some assortment of percentages with 25% left. Okay? K4K says, sir, you blaspheming PulseX on stream. Oh gosh, I have some answering to do to K4K. K4K, I was blown away, man. I couldn't believe that people are answering those polls the way they did. Blown away. Absolutely blown away. You can go back in the stream a little bit, check it out. All right. In this ecosystem, people seem to be valuing the stability of Hex, replacing Bitcoin as the primary store of value. I think that is going to be a really, really strong narrative going into the next bull run and then the next subsequent correction. So some people might think about keeping Hex at 50% of their portfolio. Pulsechain and PulseX at 50% of their portfolio, maybe. They might do that as well. Okay, but 50% could be Hex or it could be Pulsechain and PulseX. You can modify your 50-50 with a 50-25-25 or a 50-40-10. And I've said this before, there's many of you who have a degen itch to scratch. And this way you can scratch that itch and be somewhat hedged. So if 50% is in an asset that you think is going to be stable moving forward, or maybe 50% will be in two assets, 25 is going to be into another one, maybe 20 can be into something else, and then maybe 5% can be in your Pepe. All right, or whatever the hell you want, or what do they call it? The Wojak, or the Kings, or the, you know, the dog coins and the shibs and the miss shibs and your baby mama shib or whatever it is, WBJ. Okay, so you guys get the point. A small amount of your portfolio can be allocated to those things. So you scratch the itch. If it hits hard. But the neat thing is you don't have to allocate a lot of capital to it, so there's not a lot of capital to lose. Okay? So you can modify the 50, 25, 25 any way that you want. I do not think you should discount non-RH created projects on Pulsechain. And we're going to get deep into this. And this isn't just because I have, you know, I'm a part of Texan, okay? If you guys didn't know, if you're showing up for the first time for legal purposes, and, you know, I want to make sure it's clear, I am co-founder of Texan, okay? But we're not going to focus on that. We're going to talk about things in general. I think that there are a myriad of yield-bearing assets that will make Pulsechain an absolute cornucopia of wealth, especially when you factor in cheap gas fees initially. Do your own research. Checking chat here. We're 48 minutes in. Golly, man. We got to keep moving. All right. Thoughts. So if we have PLSX as the apex asset on Pulsechain initially, followed by Hex and PLS. And reminder, guys, this is a dynamic thing. The markets change fast. This isn't static. So everything I'm talking about, like this hour-long conversation, when Pulsechain launches, this whole conversation can get shot to hell in a day because the markets determine what happens. All right. I don't determine what happens. The markets do. So let's see what happens here. Okay. So another thing here is people change their mind based on influencers. Influencers, guys, and I'm not going to say here. Okay. This is difficult to do. I'm just going to say it. I think I have much better, internally, I'm highly incentivized to make sure that you guys win. That's what makes me feel good. I don't want to give you information that's going to get you wrecked. Even if I'm giving you information that doesn't benefit me, I would much rather you guys be around for the next 10 years rather than something come back to bite me because I was selfish or this or that. Not all people who are talking to you on YouTube have your best interests in mind. Okay? So just keep that in mind always. You can let that person be 49% of your decision making, but guess what? You're 51%. You make the final decision, and don't forget that. It's important. So things can change. Things can change on a dime. People FOMO, people ape in. What sorts of market moves can we expect to see? All right. I think initially we will see massive amounts of movement towards the upside with Pulsechain. I think we've established that. I think it will follow suit with previous L1s and 10x to 20x within a week or 2 weeks. At the same time as people roll profits off of PLS and into Hex and PLSX, you can see Hex do a 2 to 4x from launch price. All right. So whatever price Hex is at when Pulsechain launches, 2 to 4x initially. We're not talking about the bull run. We're talking about that 2-week period. Okay? Very important. I think potentially we see a PLSX do a 5 to 10x from launch price. I think that is reasonable based on the data that we've collected. I attempted to illustrate the chain of events that will lead to these market moves with the R2R pyramid of pump. Are you guys ready for the pyramid of pump? All right. Let me find the pyramid of pump here. All right. This is the pyramid of pump. Okay. On this axis, on the top axis, this represents economic mass. Okay. So the wider it is, the heavier it is. On this other axis down here, this represents time. Okay. So as you go down, you're going further down in time. And then this arrow here represents the cyclical nature of what I'm about to explain. Okay, it cycles up, it cycles down. Cycles up, it cycles down. So here's what we're talking about. And guys, this idea is an idea that we see in Bitcoin already. And you guys might have heard things similar to this. I just slapped my name on it for Pulsechain purposes. So this is basically saying that at the top here, you're going to have massive amounts of economic mass in Pulsechain. That's probably where it goes first. Okay? You can think about each one of these layers as a floor. All right? Now, what happens if you put too much weight on the top floor? Eventually, it falls down. All right? So you're going to see money dump into Pulsechain. In this top floor, that floor is starting to get stressed. It's going to get stressed over a certain period of time. As we go down time, we go down that timeline, Pulsechain gets heavier and heavier and heavier. That money eventually falls through. You're going to start to see Pulsechain, the price appreciation, stall or go sideways. Then what happens? What happens when it stalls and goes sideways? It busts through that floor, and then it falls down into Hex and PulseX. So this is how you're going to see the economic energy cycling through, in my opinion. So it busts through this floor, it goes to Hex and PulseX. You start to see Hex and PulseX run. That floor gets really, really, really heavy. All right, Hex is pumping, maybe PulseX is pumping. This can be either or. There can be one more floor below PulseX that could be Hex or vice versa. But eventually it busts through that. And then what happens? That's when you start to see the popular L2s run. All right. So we're going to talk about just off the top of my head, and I didn't have enough space in here. And guys, like I've said before, I am the mayor of Realville, population 1. If you don't like some of the statements that I'm about to make, you can cry me a river. You can report me. You can unsubscribe to me. You can not like anything I say, and I don't care. And if you're upset, that's for you. All right, we've established that now. All right. Popular L2s. Where does that money go after it falls from Pulsechain to Hex and PulseX? It goes down to popular L2s. You got Texan, you got IM, you got Hex derivatives. You have Zen, you have the PLSD ecosystem, you have Fiat, you have PP, you have Win-Win, you have Liquid Loans, you have the Power City folks. This is how this works. It's going to fall through, and money is going to flow from opportunity to opportunity to opportunity. All right. What happens after it falls through that floor? You're looking at outside L2s, surprise communities. Now, why am I saying this? Why surprise communities? Well, these communities are communities out there that don't know much about Pulsechain. So there's not going to be massive adoption and probably trading of these assets on Pulsechain, but you could see some popular stuff really run hard after it falls through each one of these floors. I would say SHIB could be one of those. Okay. I would say potentially, if it's played right, Pepe could be one of those. Why? Because all of the spotlight in the whole world is on that token. And it has been. It's falling right now. The speculators are selling off. But guys, guess what? I'm just giving you an example of tokens that have the spotlight, that if they found out that these copies are on Pulsechain, maybe it could run. What's underneath that? High risk, high reward. Okay, 50 million market cap tokens are under. Now, I understand that a lot of the popular L2s on Pulsechain are 50 million market cap or under. But guys, guess what? It's different because people are familiar with these. They've been seeing them for the past 18 months or 2 years. All right, that's different than what I'm saying here. Some guys spinning up a smart contract and just going crazy. So at the end here, the end of this process, which is actually the beginning of the top of this process, is what? The cycling through of monetary energy back to the top. We see this exact process played out in Bitcoin. Okay, so it goes from Bitcoin, then it goes to Ethereum, and then it goes to popular L1s. And then after obviously Ethereum is the granddaddy of the L1s. You got Bitcoin, you know, the generation 2 L1s. That's what I'm referring to. Gen 2 and above, not Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, it goes to Pulsechain or Ethereum. From Ethereum, it goes to these L1s. From these L1s, it goes to popular L2s. From L2s, it pours down into altcoins and shit coins, and it goes crazy. And then it cycles all back up, and people put their money back into the thing that's going to hold value. Maybe Hex is the top of this for you. I think initially it's not going to be, because all the data that we have collected up until this point tells me that Pulsechain is going to be the highest demand asset. But it can change. It can run differently. Okay? So this is the R2R pyramid of pump. I will post this on Twitter. All right, this is not summary. Things to consider. The understanding of what a bridge is will be slow amongst the community. So we're talking about Pulsechain pumping. We have to understand what the learning curve is going to be for the people who don't know how to use their MetaMask. Much of the crypto world out there barely feel comfortable with their own MetaMask wallet, much less the concept behind a bridge. They barely know what MetaMask does. How are they gonna latch on to the concept of a bridge very quickly? Probably not. So I think after we see the initial pump from the people of big bags, we're going to see a correction in sideways action for about 90 days. Slowly, people will begin to understand how to ramp in new monetary energy. And hey, influencers out there who are watching right now, I've seen quite a few in here. It's up to you to just pound this into people's heads, okay? We're a team here. We got to work together as a team. We need to turn into straight, full-blown foundational education mode for everybody that's going to be. In fact, we should probably create a coalition and just pump out videos on bridges and then pump out, you know, videos on PulseX all at the same time so we can really take over YouTube. But we got to educate these people. So we're going to talk about how to ramp in new monetary energy. I think we move into a long and drawn out bull run as influencers let their folks know about the free copies sitting in their wallets and how to access them. I don't think we're going to go to parabolic in 3 months. I think the parabolic process it would probably be, I think that maybe if we launch this month, maybe in 18 to 20, maybe about 24 months from now, we see a top before a correction, maybe a little bit longer. But I think it's going to be slowly up and to the right because we're launching in a really big place, a good place. Okay. So I think that PLS will lead the charge in terms of ROI all the way up. Now, K4K is going to be happy about this. I think that we're going to lead the charge all the way up, PLS will, until about a 6-month period just before the height of the bull run. PLSX is going to absolutely murder the scene. And I'm not saying that to be agreeable. I'm saying that based on data. Here's the data. It's all about the narrative. It's all about the pump-a-mental. Other simpler DEXs on Ethereum, regardless of fees, absolutely took off in the last bull market of 2020 and 2021. They had just launched. In a 3 to 6 month period, some DEXs did a 500x. I would say an average of 150x is reasonable to state during that time period back then. Okay? I think PulseX would be capable of at least those numbers and probably more. PulseX will shine during bull markets. Additionally, lots of liquidity will be tied to PulseX via Pulsechain and Hex and others. So it's just a massive force multiplier amongst a lot of different variables here that's going to push PulseX, and it's going to be used. The volume is going to absolutely shoot through the roof. You got billions and billions of dollars worth of volume at the height of a bull market. It's built. PLSX will outperform in the short term. I think Pulsechain outperforms in the long term. For obvious reasons. But 6 months leading up to the top of that market, watch out for PulseX. Maybe you guys can clip this one day if I'm right. If I'm wrong, oh well. How do I maximize my opportunity in my piece of the action? Okay. And guys, here's something else, guys. I would say that 90% of you, let me just tell you that 95% of you have not experienced 100x. 100x is crazy. 100x ruins you in a good way and a bad way. So let me just say this. Do not discount 100x on any amount of money that you ever put into an investment. It's crazy, okay? I'm not gonna talk about 10,000 X's anymore. I'm not gonna talk about 1,000 X's anymore. I'll talk 10x, 100x. All right? That's what I'm doing. Don't discount it. It may be peanuts. It might be. This is a long game. It feels like a short game initially. Right now, some of you guys are freaking out inside your heads, inside your hearts. You're freaking out. You're like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And you can't think straight because you're so excited. So it feels like a short game because your adrenaline is pumping and you see the chart skyrocketing. Guys, this will happen. But with proper planning and thought, you can screw your damn head on straight. You got to chill out. All right? You guys have got to relax. You got to make the plan now so when it launches, you're not making dumb decisions. You're not pressing buttons that you shouldn't be pressing because you don't know what the hell you're doing. And friggin' Johnny Appleseed, the influencer, told you to do X, Y, Z, and now you're wrecked. All you got to do is survive. What I've done in the past with launches, like I said, take 50% of your dry powder, buy day one, and then DCA after that, regardless the market's going up or regardless if it's going down. Because you don't know. You're not a prophet. People say they know. They don't know. I don't know. This is pure speculation. This is like speculation on top of speculation on top of speculation with as much data as we can collect, but we just don't know. Let me ask you guys this. What happens to the price of assets on Ethereum and PLS? Will there be price parity quickly? So let's say you go into the Alaskan wilderness and you mine a bunch of gold. However, you're in the middle of nowhere and you have no one to trade with or sell gold to. However, 6 months in, a transport plane owned by a gold marketplace starts making runs to the back country where you're located every week. Guess what, guys? That gold that you have, that you're excited about, it don't mean nothing because you can't get it out of there. You can't walk out of the back country. You can't do nothing. You're screwed. All right? It only becomes valuable when there's a pathway back to liquidity or a pathway back to the market. All right? So I'm trying to use this to illustrate what could happen to assets on Ethereum and PLS. Okay, is there going to be parity? 6 months in, a transport plane owned by the gold marketplace starts making runs to the backcountry where you're located every week. The gold you were holding had no value until you had a path back to the marketplace. Even though that marketplace collects gold from different parts of the world, it's still gold, regardless of where it's collected. Now, why did I say that? If you have an asset on Ethereum, you have an asset on Pulsechain, and you have a path back to each other where they can connect, guess what, folks? There's going to be an opportunity for those assets to be the same price. What happens if one asset is higher than the other? What are you going to do? Okay, what are you going to do? Asset A on Ethereum is more expensive than asset A on Pulsechain. You are going to sell asset A on Ethereum, you're going to bridge it over, and you're going to buy up the cheap asset on Pulsechain because they're the same thing. You guys get that? This is what arbitrage bots do. They are there to clean the marketplace up. A lot of people hate them, but they serve a purpose. They remove vacuums and they create equilibrium. But people can do that too, and people will do that. So imagine your favorite token right now that is not RH related. And if you are all RH, that is 100% fine. Imagine that token too. If there's a difference in price on a different chain and it has activity and it's supported by hexagons and there's value locked up there, that price is going to get arbed out. You're going to find parity. Now imagine what we're going to start with within the first couple days. We have Hex on Ethereum and we have Hex on Pulsechain. And guess what? There's going to be a path connecting the liquidity pools by means of a bridge. All right. I'm a firm believer that price parity will occur within minutes to hours. And the margin between the ETH assets and the PLS assets will be less than 1% within minutes to hours. Okay? Not days, not weeks, not months. I don't think you're going to see Hex. You're not going to have a 50% difference on Ethereum compared. No, I don't think so. No, I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, that's fine because we're having fun here. We're just speculating, speculation on top of speculation. But I know that if there is margin there in a capitalist society or on the damn blockchain, if there is margin there to be taken, it's going to be snatched up quick. Really, really fast. All right. Other assets. Many people. Okay. This is a trigger warning for many of you. All right. Stock split rags, parity, but lower price. Yes. Rolando points out something interesting here. All right. It might not be the same price as Hex is today. It could be half the price, but you're going to have two halves that are the same price or more than one whole. So if Hex on Ethereum drops 25% and Pulsechain Hex is going to be that 25% discount, you're actually going to have more Hex than you started with, all right, on Ethereum by itself because you got the double. Even though it's discounted a little bit, you're still net positive. Two halves are going to be more than one whole. So trigger warning, big time trigger warning. I've got RH Maxis in here, and that's fine. Guys, I've never had a problem with that. I understand it. But I've got to be straight up and honest with you guys so you understand what's happening and I set your expectations right. Many people who got involved in Hex early on have enormously large bags of Pulse, PulseX, and Hex. There are many of these people who are tied to other non-RH projects. Okay, and I'm talking about OG people. People, went way back. They're tied. They might not be publicly tied. Some of them are publicly tied to these projects. If I am the mayor of Realville and if the population is one, I must remind you all that people are going to take profits from Pulse, PulseX, and Hex and move them into their favorite projects. Why am I pointing this out? Because the whole purpose of this part of the stream is to understand what's going to happen to other non-RH assets. All right? That's going to chap your asses, some of your asses, but it needs to be said here. Barring any catastrophic contract breaches or failures, please assume the following. If you think that Zen will not run on Pulsechain, you're wrong. How dare you say that? Guys, I am not a fan of Jack. I don't like how he came at Crypto Heartbeat. All right? But I know that a lot of people hold it. And I know that I know that whales hold it too. And I know that whales support it. And guys, you can just kind of go from there. All right? If you think that Pulse Bitcoin or ASIC won't run, you're wrong. You can try to FUD it out of existence, which a lot of you guys are doing a good job of it. I don't care if you FUD it or not, but it's going to run. If you think that the most hated or the most loved token out there by the Hex community standards won't run, you're wrong. Everything's going to pump, folks, in this bull market. So we're kind of taking it outside of launch a little bit. All right, I want to be clear. I might have screwed you up a little bit. These assets, if they're built properly, if they're not rug pulls, they will run in a bull market. And that's because there are other considerations. Hex people have other considerations, okay? That's a fact. There's no way in the world you could ever disprove that statement. There are many disenfranchised RH people out there. They are hurt. They are upset. They are frustrated. To be clear, I am none of these. On a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of being patient, I'm probably a 9 out of 10. Other than not liking the vulgarity and obscenity of RH's marketing sometimes, I've not wavered from my belief that Pulsechain is needed and that Richard was going to deliver it. I've not wavered from it. I've been here the entire time. But I've observed both public and private behavior of people who want different things, and that's okay. I'm just letting you know that could play into this whole equation. About a year ago, I started saying that layer 2 people are going to have to learn how to get along and live in a layer 1 world. And that's what we're doing right here. All right. This is a paradigm shift. There's a whole mess of land out there and people are going to go settle it. And that's what's happening. All right. We talked about the pyramid of pump. Yeah, these are out of order. All right. I'm going to summarize this. Hour and 13 minutes. I thought it would only be 40 minutes. One of the biggest things that you need to remember here, folks, is this. Doing too little is much better than doing too much in this situation. Remember, all you have to do is not nuke your account. Okay? Let me get this camera up here. I don't want it to hide that beautiful... Oh my gosh, look at that head of mine. Gosh, man, that is just beautiful. You guys want to see it? I look like a crypto panda. Woo! Dang, man. Sweating like a pedophile on a playground. All right, all you have to do is not nuke your account. I'm not talking about ratio trading because there are too many plumbers, Uber drivers, waitresses, students, and regular folks out there who don't have the time to deal with the risky stuff. This crypto space is really, really cool because you can literally do the bare minimum and become incredibly wealthy. And the bare minimum, folks, is patience and time. That's all you need. Hopefully, as a summary here, hopefully, these tips help you find clarity. And I think the number one thing that I want you guys to get out of this, I want you guys to hear something in this stream that causes you to ask a question to somebody else. Because if you ask the question, that means you're getting ahead of it before Pulsechain launches, and you'll get your answer before Pulsechain launches. All right. All right. Jack says, Rags, can you please remind people to move all their assets from Sack Wallet into a new one? Guys, I did a Pulsechain checklist and went over all of that. So you can go back to my last video and you can check that out. All right. Freddie Quotes in the house. What's up, my man? Sorry, guys. I haven't been really looking at chat here. Be excited, guys, but have a plan. Stay cool, calm, and collected, please. Yeah, Brandon, your ginger beard looking on point, man. Yeah, this thing is, it takes on a life of its own, dude. This thing burns 3,000 calories a day by itself. I call it Jebediah. It's got its own zip code. You made a new ticker called Texan. How the F are you any different than Jack when he made Zen? Hypocrite. I'm different than Jack because I treat people differently than Jack. That's why. That's the bottom line. And if he's on stage with me right now, I'd say the same thing to him. Careful, Rags. People say you're shilling shit coins for saying whales hold them. Yeah, I don't care. It's just the truth. They know it's the truth. And if they deny that, then it is what it is. All right. Who else is going to start streaming? We need more. Never too soon to start, folks. That's a great, Benny, thank you for bringing that up. Guys, check this out, man. There is so much opportunity in Pulsechain. So much opportunity in Pulsechain, folks. All right? You can run a business. You can do a side hustle. You can create a course. You can create a magazine. You can create a news, whatever. I see the Pulse Tube in here. You can do all sorts of cool things with this. The other thing is, if you wanted to start streaming, guys, you would be a plank holder. You would be a Genesis streamer for Pulsechain. You would be doing it before everybody else does. You're going to get upset because you might have 500 followers or 100 followers for 6 months or a year, but that bull market comes in and boom, you got 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 11. Some of you might blow up 50, 100, 200, 300,000. All right. Take advantage of the opportunity. If you're ever on the fence about it, go talk about, good individual effort is what's going to make everything work here. Benny, thank you for bringing that up. Guys, I'm not saying Zen sucks. All right. I didn't make a statement that Zen sucks. I didn't make a statement that Zen was awesome. Rolando says, I think outside the box, don't follow the masses. Do chase pumps. Be prepared, guys. The opportunity is going to be there. Have dry power ready. Facts. All right. If you guys have any questions about what I talked about today, you can hit me up on Twitter. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. You can comment on this stream too. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from all over the world, a quick reminder. Your boy is out.